It's hard to look at Dayton and not see it. Some say it's the river, some say it's the color of your skin, and others measure it in dollars. There are those in power, and there are the rest of us fighting to be heard. To see it isn't hard. You look downtown, pristinely swept, new housing and development being built with subsidies of our tax dollars. Then you drive around in neighborhoods on the other side of the river and look at the missing windows, the burnt out shells, the unkept grass, the pothole streets, the lack of shops, the lack of services, the lack of safety, the lack of opportunity. The divide is real. When the house next to yours burns, it stays. That's why I chose to run, to put neighborhoods over politics, to work for the people who have been passed by, the one whose voices aren't heard, no matter how many times we say we have had enough. The divide is wide. It's been growing wider, deeper. This time, it's your turn to cross the divide, to move Dayton forward, to becoming a stronger, vibrant city that works for all, where there are services, opportunity, and safety that we all deserve. When you choose your next Dayton City Commissioner, it's time to choose one that's going to work for you, for the people, to cross the divide and to heal our city. I'm Shenise Turner-Sloss, and it will be an honor to serve as your next Dayton City Commissioner. Hello, Dayton. I'm Shenise, and welcome to another episode of Like It Is Dayton. I am so happy to see everyone and to be here. So what you saw is our video that we actually produced in 2019. And to see that video is a reminder how still today those issues are still prevalent. And so we really have to make some changes. And I know we have the energy, we have the talent, we have the passion and the commitment to do so. But nonetheless, we have an awesome show today. We have some wonderful guests. I am very excited about today's topic. We're going to talk about community change makers and talk to some people in our community who are in fact just that, community change makers, and how do we cultivate and retain our talent? So let's bring in our guests and we allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So our first guest we have coming up is Mr. Reginald Henderson.
Hopefully everyone can see me and is doing.
Hi.
Good.
How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I see you. I like the hair.
Got the beard trying to come through for me. So it's real good.
Very good. You want to tell the people? Yes, please introduce yourself and tell the people all about yourself.
For sure. So I'm a born and raised Daytonian. Been here all my life, man. Went to, I don't know if you guys remember Jefferson Montessori, but went to Richard Allen. Skipped across town out to Alter, ended up at UD, and so I've been around the block a couple times. In my time at UD, I served as a WS Macintosh intern. So anybody who is a rising senior or junior, definitely check into that. I got a full ride to the University of Dayton for 4 years, and got a full ride. I mean, was working with the city hall and did that thing. So I just been around the community, and that's where my heart lies.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to have you here with us this evening. So thank you very much. Sure. So next we have coming up is Miss Libby Ballengee. Libby?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, it's good to see
you. Great to see you, too. It's been a minute since
it has.
I'm also a local Daytonian. I grew up in Brookville, and I've lived in the city for 40 years, and I've been involved in a lot of projects and nonprofits. I was a podcaster, an arts advocate, been involved in a lot of different projects, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being and joining us. Thank you. So next we have Miss Cameron Walker. Come on in, Cameron. Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, everyone. My name is Cameron Walker. Actually, formerly Cameron Bonner, and I say that because I am a Daytonian. This is my hometown, but I did leave for a while and come back. And when I came back, I definitely saw some changes from when I was growing up to make me want to get involved. So for, I would say, like the last decade or so, I've been just a community advocate, working with the schools, working with different community organizations to help bring awareness to some of these issues and actually find solutions for those issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So next we have, thank you so much for joining us, Miss Tasia Cartwright, TJ. Come on in, TJ.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, good to see you.
Good seeing you too, Shenise.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, guys. My name is Tasia Cartwright, a.k.a. TJ. I have a business and web series called What's the Biz with TJ that really highlights the stories of Black-owned businesses in Dayton and surrounding areas. The goal is just to really build the community and the relationship between Black businesses and their customers, so that we can really boost the Black economy, because we can't get anywhere without investing financially in our community so that we can have power to really support our people. I really care about kids, so I'm really doing this, for the kids. But that's my goal, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you. So next we have coming up Mr. Nick Hrkman. Come on in, Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick. I'm a born and raised Daytonian. I grew up on the east side, Franklin Montessori, like Reggie, not there anymore. And then I went to Stivers, and I don't know if anybody knew or remembers Derek Ali, but he was a really formative, sort of a mentor to me. He taught journalism at Stivers for their program. And I decided, following his death, which was a tragic story, to go into journalism, follow his footsteps. And I went to Ohio University for journalism, studied there, came back to Dayton in 2009, and worked at the Dayton Daily News for a while, got into marketing. I've had my hands in a number of projects around town ever since then. And now I am, a community advocate, and like everyone else wants to see Dayton move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And certainly last but not least, I have to introduce Mr. Alvin Wilkerson. Please, Alvin, come on and join us.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Good to see you.
You too. My name is Alvin Wilkerson, also a Daytonian, born on the Westside, Dayton. Lived throughout Dayton, Five Oaks for a lot of years. Went to Edison, and then Omega, and then DECA. Stayed in Dayton and went to University of Dayton. Also, Macintosh scholars. Shout out to all the Macintosh scholars out there.
All right.
So I work in engineering, automotive engineering locally, and I'm one of the founding members of the Westside Makerspace project.
All right.
Our goal is to create a worker and community-owned makerspace in West Dayton.
Absolutely. So again, I have to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule for joining us. As I mentioned before, this conversation is very fluid. It is nothing scripted. However, I do have like maybe one or two questions. Feel free to chime in anytime. Again, wherever the conversation leads us and take us, we're going to definitely feel free to do so. And we're just going to go with the flow. So, going with the flow. So the first question I wanted to ask you all, and it ties into the title itself, right, of our topic, community change makers, and from you all's description and giving your introduction of the level of your commitment, not only to the city of Dayton, but your respectable fields that you are working in. And so I want to talk about, are we cultivating and investing in our local talent? Do you feel that we, not only with our local government, but the community itself, are we investing in our local talent? And anybody, please chime in.
I guess I could chime in first. I don't know if we should get a raise a hand system or something going, but I would say no. It can definitely be areas, that we could increase, the amount of effort we invest into the people that live here. And that's one of the things we want to do with the Makerspace. We've seen like a divestment in communities like West Dayton and not reinvested back into the people, whether that be in skills, whether that be in pushing them to be creators in the economy and not just users. So with the Makerspace, we want to invest back into the people of West Dayton. And that means invest in skills so they can start their own businesses or learn how to fix problems that may arise in their life, or just skills that will allow for upward mobility.
Absolutely. Go ahead, brother Reginald.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, man, I think it starts really at a young age. When you think about opportunity, people have to be sparked to what's out there. When you only have so many sports, you don't have as many outlets as far as music in our schools. When you don't have an array of recreation centers, it's kind of hard to find an area that you can call your own, find a way to navigate around this space that can make you a creator, that can make you someone that can add a lot of value. So definitely missing some investment in my mind.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I take you back off of Reggie a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Come on in.
One thing that Reggie really talked about was like art and stuff like that. And I have a lot of friends who are artists, and there is like no investment in art. And I feel like the investment that is there is just lacking. But if we took everything out of the city, if we took all the paintings, all the events, everything, it would be dull. So I think we definitely need to invest in creativity and creatives, because we are lacking in that department, I would say.
So how do we do that? So that's an interesting thought, because to your point, is it just having those relationships with not only our school district, or is it a combination of making sure that our government, our local government, is providing those spaces, those avenues to build those relationships, to create that space for the arts? Or what are some things that you think that we need to tap into that we're not necessarily doing to create that art space and to encourage arts?
I could chime in a little bit on that if you guys don't mind. I think that's one of the reasons why we came together to make this Makerspace.
Yeah.
Because not seeing a lot of investment in like the schools for art, or whether it be STEM, or not seeing, and like Reggie was saying, if you don't get that early foundation of a STEM education or of an art education, or just that exposure, it'll be harder and harder as you get later in life and more of life's pressure on you. You're not going to have the time to go back and learn a new hobby, or invest that time into something or a creative outlet. So our group came together and to try to solve the solution, because we're not seeing it in our schools. We're not seeing it in organizations throughout the community where people can come and learn new skills, or the artists that are in the community have the resources that they need to elevate what they're trying to do.
I think I tend to be a little controversial, kind of push buttons. And I think as we're looking for solutions, we have to also look at what the root is. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to for me, it's about intention. Absolutely. And so these things are here. We have Stiver Schools for the Arts. We have beautiful artwork downtown. But who are we engaging when we're bringing together people to do these murals? I know Montgomery County actually funds art programming, like beautification of neighborhoods, but who gets those funds? Who leads those funds? And then who's the targeted group that can benefit from those things? So if your child doesn't go to Stivers, then they miss out on a lot of opportunities. If your child, when the school district is making decisions and choices that disenfranchise the population of students who attend our schools. So the STEM programming.
Absolutely.
And who's holding them accountable? We have one STEM program and the community doesn't know, but they're about to get rid of it. They're about to change the name back to Thurgood and remove the STEM. So when these decisions and choices are being made, who are they being made to benefit? And I think that's where the intention is. I think a lot of divestment came from resources and things that can support generational families, the families that are already here. And we are targeting outside entities, outside groups to draw people into Dayton, but we're not taking care of the people.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And I echo exactly what you all have mentioned thus far. And that's one of the reasons why we came together, Blaqsage Production and myself, the campaign, because oftentimes when people run for office, they do a lot of talking and less listening. And so I am not saying that I have all the answers, but it's important that we know that there are a number of people in the community that have ideals, they have the skill set, the passion, the commitment to really work together to really make Dayton the place that we all want to live, work, and play. And your point is right. You're spot on in terms of making the people a priority. So I want to hear what you have to say, Tasia or Nick or Libby. Any thoughts on that, please?
I wanted to just jump in real quick and say, I think part of, I remember from your original campaign, Shenise, when we were talking about, downtown investment versus investment in our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And I think to some degree, we can kind of compare that a little bit to what's happening in the arts community. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is focused on downtown. Mm-hmm. And that certainly makes sense to a great degree. Right. But I would love to see how that can be expanded in our neighborhoods. And, maybe there's murals in neighborhoods, and maybe there's just positive artistic things that are happening in neighborhoods versus it all being concentrated downtown.
Absolutely.
And
then, go ahead. I was just gonna call on
Sorry, just Libby's point. I think then that is a community-driven solution.
Yeah.
Because who's to say we can't take paint on a boarded-up house in one of our communities and a group of us paint a mural on those boards? I mean, it becomes controversial, but if the government or the city's not going to do it for us or provide a way to beautify, then there are certainly ways that we can create those spaces for ourselves.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes those opportunities are out there, and it's just really hard for neighborhoods to know that they're there. Like the neighborhood I live in, Hrkman, they got a grant to paint a mural on my garage, which is next to the community garden, and it's really lovely. But I think sometimes those kinds of grants, it's just there's sometimes like little disconnects between what the county provides, what the city provides, and sometimes those opportunities are out there. We're just not the greatest communicators of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just want to chime in and say I think it's a little more than just like murals and stuff like that. Like I really hear a lot of artists being invited into spaces and asked to do stuff for free. Like it's time to understand. Like it's been time to understand that art is more, and artists invest more time into creating these types of experiences for us. So I feel like more than just a mural. Like I feel like artists are literally being disrespected.
Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. I think one point that was made earlier was, the city being able to control what they invest in, but like whether that's downtown or, not seeing investment in Westside of Dayton. And one of the points with the Makerspace is it's working community-owned cooperative. So similar to like, if you see Gym City Market, the new grocery store going in the lower quarter of Salem, it was a cooperative that the community came together and was like, we're tired of waiting. How are we going to solve this problem? Because we can say stuff all day and it's just not going to get there for us. So similar, we're trying to do a similar approach until we see, like Tasia was saying, artists not getting, the respect and their due respect, or people assuming that, art is free. We want to show people that you can come to this place and see how hard it is to produce this quality of art and learn to respect it. And at the same time, and be able to control the direction of our community, be able to make sure we have STEAM education, art programs, and that sort of thing in our community.
Absolutely.
And and I think that's a larger thing as well. I just think that people are expected to give their time and not be compensated. People who have solutions are expected to sit on committees for free, but then write the script for things. Or you're invited into spaces and people want to pick your brain, so to speak, but then they'll pay an outside consultant from a different community $100,000 contract, where, you know, the people who actually live here, you want to kind of just give us a space at the table on a committee, and you don't want to pay us for our intellectual property or our solutions or our strategies. So I think there's just a general overall just disrespect of the people who have been here for generations and showing us again and again, we don't have value. The only thing that matters is when we cast that vote.
Yep. And then the timeless excuse. Oh, sorry, Reggie. The timeless excuse of we don't have it in our budget.
Right.
We have money for everything else. Like, really intentionally sit down with the community and like talk about like what can we do to allocate those funds, because we do have it. We have enough money, you know, to do all this other stuff. You have enough money to pay people for their intellect.
Yeah,
we do.
I think Cameron brought up a good point in regard to contracting, because it's not just the arts, it's not just sports, it's not just, you know, we have a whole business community, and we got people on this call right now who are entrepreneurs, you know, who could get a lot of help by being in contract with the government to handle certain projects. So focusing a lot of our efforts on keeping things in-house will keep people in-house, you know.
So I think again, I agree with you all 100% hands down, but I want to ask, and you all probably, honestly, you already are touched on it, but I think it's important to pose a question. Are we creating that pipeline? Are we creating that pipeline for talent? And to Cameron's point, you know, we oftentimes look for those big out-of-town investors or developers, whomever have you, to come into our area and our space and to save us. And they're going to rebuild our communities, and they're going to rebuild our housing. They're going to bring all these jobs, but really understanding that the asset that we truly have are the people in the city of Dayton. So I want to know, from your perspective, are we creating that pipeline of talent? And again, how do we retain people such as yourselves? You know, you all have the experience, the talent, you're educated. Like, how do we keep you here? How do we keep you here to make you want to stay for the next 20, 30 years, to grow your family, to grow your business? We have to retain our talent. Can you give your thoughts on that?
I'll jump in and start and just say one thing that would be great is that we were somebody else touched on it earlier. But one thing is that when I've had a seat at the table in terms of being on a committee that's, you know, planning about something and really coming from a generational perspective, and really thinking about people 25 to 45, you know, a lot of times, you know, in our sort of institutional programming, we really aren't offering things for that age group. We're offering things maybe for children, and we're offering things for people who are seniors, especially with traditional performing arts and that kind of thing. And one thing that's frustrated me is that I've made a lot of like suggestions on programming and different things that would allow people to have greater diversity, both, you know, just regular diversity, but also a diversity of programming, and really was just kind of not listened to and not kind of dismissed. And I think that that's really aggravating for people who are are volunteering for these committee positions and are really trying to put their talent forward. I think we really need to embrace the people who are doing that work and are offering that work, especially for free. That, you know, not everyone has great ideas, but I think sometimes it's a little like dismissive from like the sort of institutions. And I think something that would help keep me is just people being thoughtful listeners and really take into consideration, you know, that younger generations' tastes change, and that, you know, we're not just, you know, not just programming for older people with money, you know?
Yeah. I like what you said. Younger generations' tastes change. Absolutely.
Nick, we want to hear from you. You got any thoughts?
Sure. As for talent retention, and I guess the general focus, the economic development focus, that it's not just Dayton, but I think a lot of places place this emphasis on jobs first. And if there are jobs, people will come, and just this kind of single-minded focus. And there's something to be said that, yeah, if there are a lot of available jobs, if there's a lot of work, people will be drawn to job centers and things like that. But I think it's a little misplaced. I think the focus should be on developing a livable city, developing a place where humans want to be.
Yeah.
Where if these needs are if these basic human needs are taken care of, and people feel equitably treated and fairly treated, they will find their way to your city. They will find their way to Dayton. And I think they will create an economy. They'll create jobs themselves. They'll start businesses. They will invest in their community. So placing this emphasis on just new jobs and it's trying to pull the Amazons of the world or large outside corporations. I think it's a little wrong-headed, and I think it can backfire when your attention is then focused nationally and internationally to try to win some anchor business, when really a lot of the talent and a lot of the investment should be coming from the community here.
Absolutely.
To piggyback on what Nick is saying, we have to understand what Dayton is. Dayton is essentially a small town when you look at it. And if we functioned as a small town, like you said, depending on local businesses, small businesses, depending on community to create the services and engage in the services that are needed for our particular area versus trying to copy larger metropolitan cities that we can't even really house, a public transit system. If you want a job, if my teenager wants a job, she has to catch a bus to go to Huber Heights or to Beaver Creek or to Centerville, and that's a 2 to 3 hour commute. So we're not looking at how we can actually revitalize Dayton that is beneficial for the small town feel to get people engaged. And then when you do have larger opportunities, I see people have to leave and then try to come back and make a difference, but then you don't have relationships. One thing that I heard when I got back to Dayton, it's all about your relationships. But if you don't have the right connections and the right relationships, which in my opinion is a very small circle, when you look at the majority, if you're on the outside, I do believe that there's an undercurrent of change happening. Everyone on this call is a representative of that undercurrent, but we're not able to elevate to the point of making the impact that needs to be made because we're closed out by that smaller group of relationships.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Yeah.
I think it comes down to a sense of pride. I wouldn't say we have a prideful community or even a culture to be prideful of. And that's how you can tie in business and the arts and sports and all those things. You got to make it fun for people. Like, why would I go kick it anywhere here and it's only 5 people there, and I can go to Cincinnati and see 100 people, So really invest in and things that people want to do, things that people want to see. When I think about all the a lot of bigger cities, we need some staples, even structure. It would be something to take a picture in front of. So stuff like that.
I think that is interesting because you're spot on in the sense that there's a lack of pride. Even from the simple things of the amount of blight and trash that we see in our neighborhoods, in our community, is where is the pride? And so we have to make sure that we bring that back and allow people to have something to want to stay in an area where they want to invest in and they want to continue to grow their family or their business. But it starts with what you just said. It starts with pride.
I travel a lot with the different work that I do, and it just never fails. I go into a different space. There's a book for Sankofa Books and Video that's in DC. Or, I recently was able to go to PR, and there's a cultural center there that focuses on the Afro-Latina history because that area was settled by our ancestors. And what I participated in a dance class.
Awesome.
And then after that, there was an enrichment class for the babies to make masks and learn about their culture there. So I feel like I've been able to go into all these different cities and feel a pride and feel a culture and feel Black pride and feel like there's a space for me. But every time I come back home, I do not feel like there's a space for me.
Wow. Yeah.
I do have one point to make based on some of the earlier discussion. I definitely agree that we need this reinvestment in like collaborative and community spaces where people can come and learn and share and collaborate together. But I also remember growing up, and you couldn't get a decent job in Dayton. You know, we was on the cusp of innovation, like we have been throughout history, between Delphi and NCR. The manufacturing was popping here, you know, and I think, you know, if you look at the trends of what's happening now, manufacturing in a sense of, you know, these large factories is going to morph into something new. But if we don't prepare the citizens in our community to be part of that, you're going to have to go somewhere else. You know, it's going to be Silicon Valley or California, because that's where you go to get those skills. Or like in, you know, a lot of the fields I'm in, you either outsource it to other countries because work can be done anywhere. But if you don't have the skills, then you're never going to be a player.
And that's that pipeline you were talking about.
Yeah. We just had, Cameron and I just had that conversation, because you're absolutely right, correct, excuse me. And I just want to pull on that thread a little bit, because we were at one point and another, we were the hub of manufacturing. Now we're shifting and going to a different area. But how do we, to your point, Cameron, how do we create that pipeline? How do we make sure that, you know, coming through our elementary, high schools, that they are educated and they are prepared to be able to compete for those jobs at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, one of the largest employers, you know, in the region. And oftentimes people that come from the Dayton public schools, they're not employees. They're not beneficiaries of that, you know, of that employer. So any other thoughts?
The education system, I don't know how we penetrate it. It seems like it's unpenetrable. Community members show up, parents show up, or community organizations show up. And it doesn't matter. It falls on deaf ears. And so I would ask, what are the goals of our particular or our current school administration when it comes to opening up these jobs? I hear, you know, we have programs that are going to create a feeder into our EMT and our fire department, and a feeder into possibly the police force. But again, those are city jobs. And not, you know, not everybody wants to go into those fields, right? But you know, we're boasting that this is a tech town and we're getting tech town. But again, those relationships are formed with Kettering and with Centerville and with Oakwood. How does Dayton get any skin in the game, and who leads that initiative? Who leads that charge?
Yeah.
Okay, just to piggyback on that real quick. I know with the Makerspace, we just recently met with the director of diversity and inclusion at Wright-Pat, and to see how can we make sure that resources from Wright-Pat, if they're intended for the Dayton community, that they're not just skipped over West Dayton. Absolutely. So I think it takes stuff like that just to see who's out there and how can we make sure these intended resources are getting to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. And then to kind of go off of that, I feel like when these resources are provided to people, that they're not hard to get. Like they're not making these like, oh, you can have this, you can have this $50,000, but you need to make $100,000 a year. And it's like really cutting out so many businesses, specifically Black-owned businesses, because that's what I'm here for. And so I think it's important to, when we do have these resources, meet people where they are. Stop making up these rules, just looking at certain things that only matter to you. Like, look at the whole board.
Well, right now, the buzzword, or what I've been hearing, there's just not talent in the African-American community. There's not talent to fill these gaps. And one of issue that came up, it was someone's issue they brought to the table, but it made me think about our apprenticeship program. So we have all this construction going on, and Black people are not able to bid or get the bid. They're either not aware that the bids are happening, or they're just not awarded the bids. And so then the conversation becomes, well, there's not enough talent out there. There are not enough Black people who have these type of certifications. And then it's like, okay, well, why don't we present that? I worked in workforce development, and it would be great to be able to get my clients involved in an apprenticeship program. Then when you ask that question, they say, well, when we had those apprenticeship programs, we didn't have people who were willing to participate.
Yeah.
So how do we really change this narrative?
Yeah. Nick, do you want to touch on that? Because I know you were very instrumental in the last, was it the second to last, or may have been the last petition that was circulating the city of Dayton in regards to the HRC's budget cut? When you talk about minority businesses and having those opportunities to be able to compete for those various development jobs and projects, you want to talk a little bit about that and where we are, and just how do we make sure that, in fact, we are inclusive in having those funds and those opportunities available? And I just want you to speak on your experience, if you will, from circulating that petition. And again, kudos, we really appreciate that, because that's what we have to continue to do. People have to speak up. We have to give our voice,
Absolutely. The HRC, I think, is an extremely valuable resource, and it's one that I think the city's taken for granted. And I think the issue that really that throws the whole thing into perspective, I think, a little bit, is that it was a public announcement. This was a big deal. There was a proclamation of racism being declared a public health crisis in the city of Dayton. And what that means to me is a crisis demands crisis-like action, demands emergency action. And the HRC has been a fantastic resource for the city in protecting civil rights and minority business owners. And when you disproportionately defund the department in your city that is handling racism in the midst of this self-proclaimed racism, it just makes no sense to me. And it's really, I think, in our best interest that we protect the HRC and the mission of the HRC, and to make sure it's adequately funded if we want to make sure that those minority businesses and women-owned businesses and LGBTQ businesses, just making sure that our community has that singular resource. Because one of the statements from the mayor was especially frustrating, and that Nan said that I think every city employee should be anti-racist, which is true, right? 100% true. Everybody should be anti-racist. But she was saying that in reaction to this idea that the HRC is not that important. We don't need this department that handles racist stuff. Everybody should just be anti-racist. And I think that is a step in the wrong direction. I think that is extremely counterproductive, because the goal is to have this empowered resource in the city, and it hires and has individuals and professionals that know how to mediate and know how to handle these issues. And you can't just expect every employee of the city to magically wave away racism when they encounter it, or to have citizens come to any old city employee to mediate or handle conflicts when they arise. So I don't know. I had a lot of issues around that.
Absolutely. That's the response, and we will there will be the elimination of a number of diversity and inclusion departments across the board, if we were to really move forward with that school of thought. So any other thoughts, please?
Nick, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel as if maybe our current leadership, I don't know, I feel like somewhere there's some scare tactics being used to keep people from staying the course. Because like you said, there are resources within HRC, but then when we highlight this culture of corruption and it was handled the way that it was handled, then that makes people wary of trying to do the right thing, because you may be accused of corruption, you know, and I'm not saying whether, you know, the parties involved are right, wrong, or indifferent. What I'm saying is the way that it was handled creates it's a fear tactic. People don't want to be up against something that creates change because I may lose my job. We see this in Dayton public schools a lot.
Yeah.
I want to say a statement. There's a lot of diversity and inclusion programs being implemented or created, but then the employees of those programs, like, I just feel like sometimes it's a lot of fluff, and there are sometimes really great intentions, but like I said, there's inclusion and diversity being created, but your employees feel unsafe. Like, I think we need to like get deeper than inviting Black people or anybody else to the table just to say that they're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I see too. I see a lot of superficial things that happen that actually kind of checks the compliance box, but I don't see the work being done. I see a lot of funding coming into the city for certain initiatives, but you see the money comes in, but you don't see the positive
outcomes. Absolutely. Yeah. So Reggie and Alvin, you both were Macintosh scholars. Can you speak on your experience? Because you actually had the opportunity to work in government and local government and really see how the flow of the various departments and divisions, how they work. Do you have anything to add, not only with HRC, but maybe with the planning department or whatever you would like to give your thoughts on, just from your experience?
I'll let you go first, Red. You was down at City Hall. I was just trying to get through engineering sometimes. So, but I think, in short, I agree with everybody earlier as far as a lot of it being superficial, and my goal being like, how do we solve the actual real inequities or these problems that cause real problems? But as far as the Macintosh, I'll let Reggie go ahead.
So in City Hall, worked in planning and community development mostly, and finance. And I would say that I was pretty green, very naive. And so I can't say that I was specifically paying attention to some of the things that I would pay attention to now, based on like structural or systematic errors or missteps that may have occurred, or even organizational things which kind of limit progress. But I did see some of those things. But I think that all in all, being a Macintosh student made me want to stay in Dayton. Because if I was going to be here for another 4 years, I'm like, man, I got to do something. I got to make something shake. And so I started to pursue, that political or government, public administration really route, and get my master here. So I think that all in all, what the Macintosh gave me was a greater insight of how I could be a value add to the community by just having an array of experience and a deep understanding of a multitude of things that's going on from government to grassroots, so I really appreciate it. It's a blessing.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your experience. All right. Anybody got any other thoughts? Because I do have one more question to pose. Well, go ahead, Tasia, please.
I'm going to say my thought for my final closeout.
I will say I didn't directly answer the question because I'm trying to keep everything on the positive spin, but it's been hard being back here in Dayton.
No, this is a real conversation.
It's been hard being here the last 10 years. Like I said, I graduated 97. That was Meadowdale. So that was kind of when we started seeing them close the manufacturing doors. That was like the end of an era, essentially. And then after I graduated from Wright State, I moved to Columbus. So when I got back here, basically in duress, because I just didn't see opportunity here for myself. Kind of Reggie just sparked a thought. I tried to get involved and do certain things to kind of create a better experience for myself. Mm-hmm. But the last 10 years, I've never experienced poverty the way I've experienced poverty and I have a bachelor's degree. My mother didn't have a bachelor's degree. She worked at the post office, raised 2 children on her own, and sent us both to college. Now, we made our decisions and choices, but my mother had all the tools and resources to what she needed to do. I grew up essentially middle class. But the struggles that I have faced, I've been under the poverty line since I've been here. And I finally was able to get a job, and it's not even in our community. I have to commute to work. And so every day I have to wake up when it's time for me to get a new lease. I'm trying to find something that's in my budget, that's safe,
decent.
that's going to have a good landlord, and someone who's going to actually take care of the property. Like, those things I am confronted with daily, like daily.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. I remember when I graduated from high school, Patterson, shout out to class 2000. When I graduated, the first thing that I wanted to do, I was like, I'm getting out of Dayton. I can't wait. Because one, I was young. I wanted to get from under my parent, my mom. I grew up in a single parent home. But when I look back, to your point, Cameron, is that I didn't even know we were poor. I didn't even know that we were poor and that we were lacking, because we lived in a decent neighborhood. It was, in terms of the income range, it was a wide variety of homeowners and renters and incomes that were a part of the Residence Park neighborhood. So I didn't know that we were poor. And then to fast forward and to come back to Dayton after being away for so long in college, and you just see the poverty, you see the blight, you see the fact that there's so many structures that are boarded up, or the grocery store that we would patronize frequently, the Kroger's on Gettysburg, is no longer there. It's boarded up. So I think it's important that we tap into the talent that we have, and we find the means and the abilities to retain that talent by providing them with the opportunities, be it entrepreneur resources, or just being in the spaces to have those conversations with the people that make those decisions about what's the best route to invest in our communities overall. So
they just put a pep in your step, let me tell you.
Absolutely.
I'll just add real quick that I'm in the same boat. I'm one of the most connected people in the city, and I'm working remotely for a job in Chicago. It's just, I don't know how we, start to connect those opportunities or that kind of thing, but it's definitely a frustration for a lot of people.
So I got a question. Is that the space that we're in right now? With the global pandemic that we're all experiencing, a lot of things, and Alvin, he talked about this, people have that they have those spaces and opportunities to work, to telework or to work afar in Chicago or Columbus or whatever, that it doesn't necessarily require you to be in that state or that particular city. So are we in that space right now? And any thoughts on that?
I still think there's space for manufacturing and jobs within the community. There's space to support artists, space for them to get paid. There's money to go around, but I feel like it's just that classic example of profit over people. I feel like we just gotta, I think right now we're on the cusp of, with the COVID, highlighting some of these inequities, with the civil rights, fight that's continuing right now. Right now we can be on the cusp of how do we do something different? How do we establish pillars in our community that can make, real change? Like, we need grocery stores, we need workforce development programs, we need artist development programs, STEAM education for youth and adults,
Absolutely.
So that's one thing, everybody on this call, is good to see forums like this where people are highlighting it. We can support each other. Definitely, I think that's the route to go forward. Shameless plug, come to the next Westside Makerspace community meeting, April 8th. Go on our website, take our survey, and I think it's a co-op. So, it's going to be everybody's makerspace, everybody who wants to be involved. So if you want to be a member, you can reach out, go on the website, Yeah, get involved.
Absolutely.
I'm in there.
Yes, yes.
Appreciate
Sign
that.
me up. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anybody got anything else they want to add? Now, all of you are talkative. I have personally had conversations with you, and
I'm holding back.
I
gotta give everybody else the floor.
I got a little fired up talking about HRC and stuff. And here, Cameron. So I'll go, like, if we're talking about root issues, if we're talking about, like, a lot of the stuff we're seeing right now in Dayton, I mean, the region around us isn't that poor.
No,
Dayton,
exactly.
the region of Dayton is.
Thing about it. Tell it, Nick. Yes.
I mean, we are living in a very stratified society, and like what we're looking at right now is like a filtration process of. I mean, if we're going to be like super real about it, it's white flight. Everything out of the 50s and 60s. Like Dayton was a big time city, right?
Yeah.
We were the Silicon Valley of our day in the early 20th century, and now here we are. Once. I think it was Omega Baptist did a really great video, a pretty quick historical look at. I mean, you read it in the textbooks about school integration, and you see like the Arkansas, and you see that nationally. But like they put together a video and they interviewed people who were at Stivers, I think in 68, 69, something like that.
Okay.
But like there were white people all around like Baumberger, just standing outside with bats and chains and stuff. And they were threatening. They had to rescue black kids out of Stivers, so that they had to drive a bus to get them out of there around like when they were advocating for this. I mean, the federal person assigned to the Dayton School District to integrate it was assassinated in the federal building. I mean, he was murdered. Someone walked into his office in broad daylight and shot him.
Right.
Like it doesn't get a whole lot more black and white than that.
Absolutely.
People didn't want their kids going to school with black kids, and they were racist as all get out. And they decided that they took their money and ran. They took their ball and ran to greener pastures where they didn't have to go to school with black kids. And if we're talking about root issues, most of everything Dayton faces right now is the consequence of a bunch of cowards who left Dayton in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and they just packed their ball up and left. And yes, there's manufacturing, and yes, there's a lot of industrial stuff to go with it. But ultimately, the city could have rebounded if a lot of people didn't decide to abandon their city.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't necessarily just call it white flight either, because the shift happened. If you go to like Meadowdale currently, you look at the composites on the wall, 69, 68 was cut off, and then there's this integration of more predominantly black students who went to Meadowdale. So me growing up, honestly, in the 90s, I'm 79. So growing up 80s, 90s here, never even entered my mind that there was, I guess I would say I thought it was post-racial America. And then I got to college. So when I left my community, I saw like, oh, there's some still very real issues. But I think when there was a time and opportunity here, and it started and the divestment began, then there was black flight, and then nobody wanted to be here anymore except for the people who couldn't be here, you know. We moved to the suburbs, but we would still worship in the city. And the faith-based community is the strongest entity that we have in Dayton. They have the strongest voice, but most of the congregation don't live here.
Live in the city. That is true. And I know from experience. From, you know, and Reggie can speak to this as well, you know, from going to the various services, and a number of people that we would talk to, they were, oh, honey, I don't live in the city. I was, okay, thank you. So we have like a couple of minutes left, but I want to pose this question because you talk about, and it is so interesting because when you talk about, you know, this self-proclaimed anti-racism and really backing that up, how do we really start to see policy and programs to really, I call it, and I say, you know, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see the programming, let's see the policy to really prove and to really say that we are anti-racist. But I want to ask you all your thoughts on
So there is, and I know we only got a few minutes left, but there is a upcoming ballot initiative that is speaking to increasing the salaries of our commissioners. That's one issue. Then there's another issue on the ballot. There's about 4 or 5 issues that will be on the ballot, but the other issue is that to increase the responsibilities of the mayor. So I just want to get your thoughts, because I find it very interesting and as well as disheartening the fact that an issue like that will be on the ballot, considering that we are one of the most impoverished cities in the country. We are 90% of our students in DPS are living in poverty. We are one of the top most segregated cities in the country. Like, there are a number, we know the statistics, right? So, and then the fact that you want to add on top of that, we're in a global pandemic. I want to hear you all thoughts on, is it the time? Do you think that it is justifiable for our commission, our current leadership, to even pose that question to the constituents and the city of Dayton as to whether the mayor's role should be increased, as well as if in fact those seats or those positions should receive a salary increase?
I'll just get in and get out really quick. It's a pattern of behavior that goes back to the profit over people. People in leadership position are more concerned with their pockets. And I think that we're going to see a transition of power that is still aligned with that unless the people push back.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, I know you have some thoughts on this. You talk about HRC budget cuts.
I'm a little torn, actually, because I don't think we should be handing out money left and right to the commission. But at the same time, I do think there's something to be said about what the current pay of a commissioner or a mayor here who does that invite? So people with a lot of money are more comfortable being able to take a position or a pay cut. Where if somebody who really can't make ends meet is trying to make change in their city, like, they'll treat it like a part-time job. I don't know. Like, I'm a little torn. I don't think I have a cut and dry answer here, but I do think it's like I don't know. If they're not taking it for the money, which they shouldn't be, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a little torn.
I appreciate that. I often view the role itself as a labor of love. Like, me running for office, and this is just my personal, this is my personal stance and how I feel. And I'm not to say that anyone is supposed to agree with me, because you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, you have to be able to live. You have to be able to, have a roof over your head and put food on your table. But at the end of the day, and it's interesting too, because I had a conversation with someone that I admire and have a lot of respect for, and they said the same thing, is that who are we attracting if we're only staying at $40,000 or $50,000 for these positions, part-time positions? Then we're not going to get a lot of qualified candidates. And I'm like, I push back to that in a sense. I'm like, it's a labor of love. You're not doing it because you want to be compensated. You're doing it because you believe that everyone is supposed to be treated fair and equal. There's supposed to be equity. There's supposed to be an opportunity to give voice to those issues by pushing policy and program. We're not asking you to get rich off of it. So I think that we need to start looking at some different things before we start analyzing and identifying whether the commission should receive salary increase. On top of, you cut 1/3 of your employers. How do you cut your workforce down to 1/3, but you think that it's a good opportunity to put an issue such as salary increase for public servants on the ballot? Why are we talking about providing services or programming to assist those who have been affected by the pandemic? That should be an issue. Why are we putting something on a ballot? And I mentioned this before when issue, issue 9? When issue 9 was on the ballot, we should be taking those dollars. If we're going to see an income tax increase, we should be using those dollars to essentially right some of our wrongs, to get rid of some of those blighted structures. If that is in fact an issue, and we know that it's ravishing and taking over a number of our neighborhoods, why aren't we finding creative means to get rid of a lot of those blighted structures, or trying to put programming to create those spaces in the arts or program, whatever have you, for our constituents? That's how we should be using the dollars that we currently have, and potentially that may be on the ballot for us to vote on. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts? We can come into a close.
I'll say something
Yes.
now. I just really think it's important for us to, like, Amaha uses this word all the time, like reimagine. Like, it's really time for us to reimagine. We can't keep like using people and letting them be pushed and dragged into the dirt. Like, you'll run out of people one day. So just reimagine how you can take care of people. That's it. Like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, shout out to Reimagining America, Dayton, Ohio, the collaborative with Peter Beckendorf. They're doing great works over there. So yes, shout out to the collaborative, and check them out. Make sure you check out their Facebook page, and they talk, and we're part of that group. A number of the people that's only on this panel, actually on this panel right now, they this discussion, they're part of that as well. And they're talking about, to your point, Tasia, like reimagining our police, reimagining our housing, our neighborhoods, our government. How do we create, a livable city, and just having that well-being index. Any other thoughts before we close out? I want to give each of you an opportunity to say your last word. So please, Libby, do you have anything you want to close us out with?
I just want to say thank you so much for including me in this. I love being part of these kind of conversations, and I think having these kind of dialogues is what's going to move things forward. I think Gem City Market came out of conversations like this, and I think that we as a community do have the talent and the imagination to solve some of these problems ourselves. So I'm really looking forward to solutions people come up with, because I'm very solution oriented, and I know it's very hard to solve some of these massive problems, but I think with some imagination we can do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Libby. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We need to be urgent about it. I feel like there needs to be some urgency. Kids are missing out on education. People are dying. It's like there needs to be urgency. Sorry about that.
I think that to the community, I think it's time that we start engaging, asking questions. When people are asking for your support, get off into it. If you're handing me a flyer or something to vote for you, then ask those people questions and make them give you an answer. We don't have to be a voiceless community, no matter how tired we are.
Excellent. Yeah.
I can do my closing.
All right.
All right, cool. Great discussion. Pleasure meeting everybody. It's good to just see, people who are invested in Dayton, who've been here, who've, probably put tears, blood, and sweat into this city, and still fighting for change. And we're talking about these big issues. How do we structurally, change, this city to support the citizens here? And join the Makerspace. We're looking to do that. We're looking to reimagine, what the workforce here looks like, looking to reimagine how we respect, and compensate our artists here, and reimagine how we invest in, the people here. Showing a community meeting there. It's every second Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. So the next one will be April 8th. Also, check out our website. You can drop your information in the contact page, and we'll hit you back and tell you how you can get involved. And, it's a working community on Makerspace, similar to Gem City Market. So it'll be everybody's Makerspace.
Absolutely.
So I had a pleasure with the dialogue and meeting everyone. I think I don't know most of you personally, so it was good to connect with new faces.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you, Shenise, for having this dialogue with us and really speaking to some of the issues that are on our mind. What are we going to do in the next 5 years? Are we going to stay here? Are we going to leave? how can we make the biggest impact if we stay, whatever the case may be. And so I'm gonna echo what Tejal said earlier. Let's really talk about urgency. What can we do right now as an individual, at our doorstep, in our backyard? You know, we all can add value. So let's start to talk about that.
Absolutely. Nick, you have any closing remarks?
I'll make it real quick. Thank you so much, Shenise, for having me. I love
joining us,
everybody and meeting. I will do a quick shameless plug too. I'm involved in a project. It's called the Journalism Lab, and if you go to thejournalismlab.org, we're really pushing to try to create a healthier ecosystem for journalists and journalism in Dayton. We want to create Dayton as a hub for healthy journalism. We've been described as a news desert. Our institutions of journalism have been hollowed out, and we're looking to reinforce that. So even if you have no experience with journalism or reporting or writing, we will give you the skills you need to pitch a story to an outlet of your choice, whether it's internationally or the Dayton Daily News. And yeah, we want to make sure that our stories are being told both locally and around the world. So
absolutely. Libby, Cameron, Reggie, I see you all over that. And make sure you all connect with Nick. I can see you all over.
I'm signed up.
Lisa, you as well. Everyone. But I want to sincerely, again, I cannot thank you all enough. Thank you for joining us this evening. Make sure you check us out on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month. And then I will also add too, on the 2nd Thursday, once you leave the Makerspace meeting, then you can come on over to Like It Is Dayton and join us. We're going to be talking about a number of different things. Again, the conversation is very fluid. If you have any ideas of topics, drop us a line. Check us out on our Facebook page, YouTube page. And again, we really appreciate everyone. Everyone, take care and be safe. See you next time. Peace. Oh, I got to say, make sure you check out Mariah J video. Please make sure you run it.
Seen before. We make the world go round. We build a life of our dreams. The time is high, we strike now. A new way to do life. A new way to do life. Fuck the institutions. Bring forth the revolution of rebel. Oh, rebel. 2020 got that money, money. 2020 about to get paid. 2020 about that money, money. 2020 about to get paid. We see good farmers, plow away at the land of the corrupt. Shut away the demons who got something to say.